webinar topic entitled Navigating the 25-26 FAFSA Reform for Dependent Students. So we're thankful and grateful that you all joined in today. Today's presenter will be Mr. Isaiah Ellis, Outreach Specialist for Federal Student Aid, will be conducting today's session. So sit back, enjoy, and learn. And Isaiah, take it away.
Thanks, Fred. And thank you all who are joining us, whether you're joining us on your mobile phone, desktop, laptop, from different parts of the United States or in our neighboring islands and countries. Thank you all for taking time to join us to learn about navigating the 25-26 FAFSA form for dependent students. Just to set the expectations, we're going to start out with a presentation, but this is a step-by-step walkthrough, which means that after we cover the information covered on the slides, we will jump right into the demo, showing you exactly what the 25-26 FAFSA form looks like, the questions that we are asking for you to complete, as well as helpful tips as you're navigating the FAFSA form. Then we'll jump back into the presentation to also show you some helpful resources we have just released in the last couple of weeks and months that we believe will be helpful as you're navigating this process, as well as set the expectations of what you can expect after completing the free application for federal student aid. On your screen right now is a list of the agenda of the topics that we will cover. It's a lot of information. So if you're old school like me, go ahead and get that loose leaf paper out. If you're new school like my daughter, you're going to go ahead and break out the iPad or your phone and take the notes as we go along. We will have a short Q&A afterwards, and the information presented to you during this webinar will be uploaded to our YouTube channel at FSA Outreach. So if you want to check out additional videos that are very useful and helpful as you're navigating this process, please feel free to do so. And when you get there, please like and subscribe to our channel. It helps build that algorithm and be able to give us opportunities to provide more information on that platform. So let's start out on who we are. We are the Federal Student Aid. We're office in the United States Department of Education. We provide over $120 billion in grants, work study, and as well as student loans. And we'll kind of touch on those items later on in the presentation. These funds help students pay for post-secondary education at a college, career, or trade school. Now, those funds as well are broken down into grants, work study, federal student loan. This is money that you borrow, you are expected to pay back. Now, we'll get into a little bit, we'll touch on those in a little bit. They also give you access to state grants if you qualify. Keep in mind that state higher education authorities may ask you to provide additional application. They may ask you to complete an application in lieu of the FAFSA, but you want to make sure that you contact them to find out what is the best process to navigate or to proceed on from there. Now, the FAFSA form is also leveraged and utilized by colleges, universities, and/or career school, and they look for their own internal aid in terms of institutional grant funding or institutional financial aid. In those particular terms, so you want to reach out to your local financial aid office at the college that you are planning to enroll at to find out where you can go and access that information for more information on those as well. Now, we'll also have private organizations that may ask you for documentation that does come from the free application for federal student aid, and that's where they're looking at you for scholarship, because they may also utilize that to determine how much money you may be eligible for, if any at all. So a lot of organizations leverage the FAFSA form. So one of the myths that we always hear and the common questions that we always tend to get is, do I even need to complete a FAFSA form? And it's only going to make me eligible for federal student loans. And the answer to that is yes, you should be completing the free application for federal student aid, also known as the FAFSA, because additional entities also use it to determine their aid as well. Now, when we talk about eligibility, because in order to receive federal financial aid, you still need to be eligible. For example, demonstrating financial need. Financial need is determined by the cost of attendance minus the tuition bills and things like that. Excuse me, let me back up for a second. Minus your SAI, your student aid index. Once you minus that, then that determines how much of your you demonstrate financial need. You also need to be a U.S. citizen, also have a valid Social Security number, and one of the most important parts of this entire list on your screen is maintaining satisfactory academic progress. Each school has a different process or policy around that, so you want to make sure that you're reaching out to your institution to find out what is their policy around satisfactory academic progress. Because if you fail to maintain that, you can have your financial aid placed in probation status or have it revoked. So you want to make sure that you understand what the satisfactory academic progress policy is at your school to help you determine whether or not you're in compliance with that. So now that we have set the stage for that, now you're getting ready to fill out the FAFSA form. First things first is that you will need a studentaid.gov account. If you do not have one right now, you want to make sure that you go to the URL, open the browser, and type in studentaid.gov, because that's where you're going to go to create your studentaid.gov account. If you want to know information as it pertains to the studentaid.gov and what you need to know about creating one, we have just completed a webinar earlier today on our YouTube channel on creating a studentaid.gov account and what you need to know about also the features and how it's used. So we do ask that you go ahead, if you want to know more information, check us out on our YouTube channel. And while you're there, drop us a like. Also, hit the subscribe button. Now, as you're creating the account, keep this in mind that you're going to, when you go to the account, this is the dashboard that you should see. You're going to see the create an account, you hit to get started, and then you're going to navigate through this series of questions. Now, if you forgot your username or your password, you can also access that on that site as well. Just below that bar, you're going to see forgot username and forgot password. A couple things to have on hand are your 2023 tax returns, as well as any type of child support you did receive, and the current balance of your checking it in your savings account and your cash on hand, and the net worth of your investments. Just want to pause right here just for a moment, because if you're completing the 25-26 FAFSA form, then we're going to need 2023 tax returns because it operates on what's called a prior year. So easy way to look at that is that when you see that first year, that 2025, just minus 2 years from that. And it's very helpful, particularly if you have not completed the 24-25 FAFSA form. Okay, so you're planning to start your spring semester. You're excited, but you need to complete the FAFSA form in order to get access to the financial aid that's available, that may be available to you. At that point, remember the first part of that year, 2024 to 2025, you want to take minus 2 years, and we're going to be asking for 2022 tax information. So just to pause there for a second, 2022 tax information is going to be useful for the 2024-2025 FAFSA form. Now, the 2023 is going to be useful for the 2025-2026 FAFSA form. I know that's kind of confusing, but I promise you, when we get into the demo, you'll see exactly what I'm referring to and how to know which tax year that's going to be applicable to that particular FAFSA form. When we're talking about net worth, that's where we have the value minus the liens and expenditures, and then you come out with your net. For an example, let's say, for example, my car is worth $15,000, and then you have what's good with the financing part of it, where we financed the car for $10,000. That says the net worth of the car is the difference between the 15 and the 10 equals that 5. So that's how you come to the net worth. You have the appraised value or the overall value minus any type of expenditures or liens, expenses, and then you come out with your net. And that's a simple way of looking at it. Now, while you're also in school, you may experience special financial circumstances. Also, while you're completing the FAFSA form, because we are operating on a prior year, we're not looking at what's occurring on 2024. So if you experience a pay cut or a loss of income, if you're experiencing high tuition expenses at elementary or secondary school, or high amounts of medical and dental expenses not covered by insurance, these are situations that can be deemed as a special financial circumstance, and you want to make sure you're reaching out to the financial aid office at the college, university, and/or career school that you are planning to enroll into to provide more information to them They may ask you to provide some documentation, or they most likely let you know exactly what's the next steps as it relates to for them to verify your circumstance. Now, when we're navigating through the FAFSA form, another question that we do get a lot is that, am I an independent or a dependent student? So we wanted to put some information on the screen just to help you navigate that. Now, when we determine whether or not you're independent or dependent, we're looking to see, did a person answer yes to any one of the items on your screen? And for those of you that join us on phone, I'm just going to go ahead and read through it for you. It's A, were you born before January 1st, 2022? Excuse me, 2002. I would raise my hand, but I like my youthful looks. Now, are you married and not separated? Are you a graduate or a professional student, a veteran, someone with dependents, or at the time you turned 13, you were in foster care, warded to court, dependent of court, or your parents were deceased, unfortunately. Emancipated minor or in legal guardianship is determined by the court, or you're unaccompanied homeless youth, unaccompanied self-supporting. Now, all these questions may seem confusing. When we get into the demo, I'll show you how to answer those questions accordingly. So if you're confusing looking at the screen, don't worry. We'll help clarify it later on in the webinar. Now, the students that are considered unaccompanied homeless youth, they may be deemed independent student. Again, this information has to be verified, but if you are experiencing homeless and you are considered an unaccompanied homeless youth, you want to make sure you're either talking to the homeless liaison in your area, or you want to make sure that you're talking to the financial aid office at the college, university, and/or career school. Now, students also may experience unusual circumstance. Now, just to stop it right here, is that unusual circumstances, special financial circumstances are two different things. Special financial are related to things financial. Unusual is associated with living arrangement, lifestyle. What is something stopping you from contacting your parents? And it can be due to being in asylum status or refugee status. It could be that, again, you were considered, while all things have changed while you're there, that you experience the loss of parents are incarcerated, things like that. So if you're experiencing these things, you want to make sure that you're reaching out to the financial aid office at the college, university, and/or career school. Now, just to put it on your screen about what does qualify and what does not qualify as an unusual circumstance. As we said, contacting parents is exposing a risk, or your parents are incarcerated, or they have passed away. If your student are experiencing parent abandonment or estrangement, or they are victims of human trafficking, that's what constitutes as unusual circumstance. Those that don't constitute as unusual circumstances are refusal to provide information, will not provide information. They don't claim you on their tax returns. Those they don't qualify for unusual circumstances. And don't worry, everyone, this information, along with our recording, will be provided to you, or be available to you, on our YouTube channel. So when you go to our YouTube channel, you're going to see the links in the description. You can go ahead and click one of those links to get a request for the copy of the PDF of the PowerPoint that is shared today. Now, as you're completing the form with unusual circumstances, these are the 5 steps that you would encounter. Don't worry, we're going to go through it in the demo. So if you have your phone out, you want to take a quick picture, I'll pause for this section. This will be very useful, particularly for our college access and career professionals who are joining us today. This will be very helpful as you're assisting students and parents and students. If you're experiencing unusual circumstances, then you want to go ahead and just snap a picture on this, and this will help you navigate if you aren't able to join us for the demo part of this webinar. Okay, so let's jump into who's considered a contributor. Now, for dependent students, parents that are their tax filing status is married filing jointly, and from a married household, only one parent will need to be identified as an additional contributor on the FAFSA form. Now, when we say additional contributor, that's because everyone is considered a contributor. Everyone that's required to provide information onto the FAFSA form is considered a contributor. So when we say contributor, we're talking about people, individuals who are required to provide information on the FAFSA form. Now, if you're coming from a household and you're confused and saying, which parent do I even put down on my FAFSA form? That's okay. We have a free wizard available on studentaid.gov right now to help you answer that particular question. You don't have to have a special login. You can come in on any browser and enter your information and answer the series of questions that we do ask, and then we'll provide you an answer as which parent should you provide on the FAFSA form, helping you understand that question and answer it accordingly. So when we jump into the demo, we're going to come back to the live demo for the parent wizard after we complete the demo, because I know there's a lot of questions as it pertains to that. A couple of myths before we get into the demo. Number one, completing the FAFSA, the 2025-26 FAFSA form is only for student loans. Remember when we said in the beginning that, hey, I don't want to complete the FAFSA form because I'm only going to be eligible for federal student loans. Well, guess what? This is used by multiple entities. They use it to determine eligibility for their programs and their grants, scholarships, as well as loan programs. But it's for them. But multiple entities leverage the FAFSA to determine eligibility for other federal financial aid. You do not have to accept the aid that is offered to you. This gives you a picture of, or a snapshot of, the total aid that you are eligible for. So it's very beneficial for students to go in there and complete the 25-26 FAFSA form. But it is not a myth. Excuse me, it is a fact that is not just for student loans. Another myth that we hear a lot: I won't qualify for federal student aid because my parents make too much money and there's no point in completing the FAFSA form. Well, the truth is most students are eligible to receive federal financial aid. And while we do consider income, it is part of the evaluation process and eligibility criteria, it is not the sole thing that we're looking at. So it's always in the best interest of you, the student and parent, to help contribute to the information on the FAFSA form to really get a look at what the student may be eligible for. We say the student because the student's the individual who's going to receive the aid, who's going to be able to have the aid applied to their bill at the college, university, and/or career school. Parents, you are not obligated for that bill just simply by providing information onto the FAFSA form. So keep that in mind. Another myth that we receive: my parents and I can use the same studentaid.gov account because we're only accessing one FAFSA form. Now, this was a trick question here, right? Because we said in the question, in this particular myth, studentaid.gov account. Each individual is responsible for having their own studentaid.gov account, although they are accessing one FAFSA form. All the information that's going into the FAFSA form is going to be supporting the student. That's the one FAFSA form. However, when it comes down to providing the information or providing a signature at the conclusion of completing the FAFSA form, each contributor is supposed to have their own individual studentaid.gov account. Now, if you just joined us and you missed where we started out, then keep it, and you're wondering, where do I go to create a studentaid.gov account? Well, you go to studentaid.gov. And if you want more information on creating a studentaid.gov account and the benefits that surround having a studentaid.gov account, check out our video on our YouTube channel, FSA at FSA Outreach. Another myth that we receive: the FAFSA form is too hard to complete. Well, as you're going through the FAFSA form, we do have different types of help topics is located with the question mark, with the bubble. You also can get assistance from your college access professionals or your career professionals, higher education professionals, such as your department if you're currently enrolled, or even if you're just trying to ask a question, you can always call to your local college, university, or career school, and they'll be happy to assist you with any questions that you may have. You can also reach out to, because there are a number of online resources that assist with clarifying some of the questions as you're navigating it. And if it's too hard to complete, well, that's why you're here joining us today, to help walk through the demo and see exactly how we're asking questions and how should you answer this particular question. So this is why you're here today. So the myth is true. While it may be too daunting, it may be hard to help out, there are resources to help make it easier. So with that said, We covered a number of information as pertains to it, and I know the reason why you're here is to walk through the demo, and that's exactly what we are about to start doing. So that's what we're going to jump to right now. First things first is that when you go to studentaid.gov, and you're gonna see on your screen the studentaid.gov, you're going to go in the upper right hand corner and up in a person icon. Once you click that person icon, you're going to be presented with a screen such as this. Now, this is just the prototype version. It has limited functionality because it is a prototype, and we're leveraging that to help walk you through the demo. And we're going to be treating this as a dependent student. We do have an independent student walkthrough, and that's going to take place at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But for the purpose of this webinar, we're walking through the FAFSA form as a dependent student, okay? And the name of the dependent student is going to be Rhea Tran. And as we're going through this, we're going to come down and notice that she's ready to enter her username, and she has her password. Now, remember when I said in the beginning that if you do have a studentaid.gov account, you just forgot the username or the password, you're going to come right here, and that's where you're going to go ahead and click forgot my username or forgot my password, or if you need to create an account, you go ahead and click that. If you need help, you click that. If you would prefer, if you're more of a auditory learning style, you can go ahead to our YouTube channel, and we do provide information as it pertains to creating a studentaid.gov account. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and hit log on. And now we come to the screen. Now, a lot of the screens that you may see, I'm going to break it down for you so you can be able to know how to navigate it quickly. So on your screen right now, the first part of it, you have start a form or edit existing form. But remember when I was talking about that prior year, and we had the tax returns of 2023 that we're looking for the 2025-26 FAFSA, and then I said the 2022 information for the 2024-25, and that was a little confusing at the time. This is where it comes to hopefully it will help clarify that. So if you're starting the 2025-26 right here on your screen, then we're looking for the 2023 tax information, federal tax information. Now, if you are going into the next semester, you are late to completing the FAFSA form, and you're trying to use the funds for this year because you're either currently enrolled or you're going to enroll in the spring, you want to make sure you come down here. Then you want to click start a new form and edit the existing form, but you're looking to add the 2022 federal tax information. Okay, so knowing which FAFSA form that you plan to complete is also going to be very helpful to know what year federal tax information that we are asking for. Now, before you start to click anywhere and start your process, you want to also check out the state deadline. It's very helpful to know exactly what is your state deadline. We're not looking for where the school is located, nor are we looking for information as it pertains to, hey, I typically live in Florida and my mailing address is in, let's say it's in Maryland. Well, guess what? Wherever your permanent mailing address is, that's what we're looking for if you're living in the dual states. In some cases, for some students, that's where their living arrangements are. Now, as you scroll down, we have helpful information to help you navigate what to expect, how long would it take, what do I need. We also have our YouTube channel, our YouTube videos here as well that you can check out. And please, if you know someone that they're struggling to understand the FAFSA form or the financial aid process, please check our YouTube channel out and share those videos. We have a number of videos that we believe will be very helpful, and they're not very long. Many of which are about 3 minutes. We have the webinar recordings, which are longer, but they're all designed and created and produced to help you understand this particular process. So this page is broken down. We can start your FAFSA form or edit it. You can also find out your deadlines as well as additional information. So we're going to get started with the 25-26 FAFSA form. And we're going to start it as a student. Now, parents, you can start the FAFSA form on the behalf of the student, and then you're going to have to invite the student as a contributor. For the duration of this webinar, we're starting it as a student. And I just want to pause there because, again, just to reiterate, parents can start the FAFSA form on the behalf of the student, complete their section, and then invite the student to be able to add information as it pertains to their section as well. But for the duration of this webinar, we're going to go ahead and get started as a student. Now we have about 4 onboarding pages before you get into the FAFSA form itself. These are mostly videos, and we believe that these will be very helpful onto providing information because many of which you guys are coming into this process in the senior year, and you're being presented with so much information that you're trying to weed through just to get to an informed decision. So we believe these videos will be very helpful for you as you're navigating this process. So the second video that we have is a little bit more explanation as to who's a contributor on the FAFSA form itself. We also get into information of what to expect as a contributor, because each contributor is responsible for providing consent and approval that allows for us to be able to pre-populate the information from the IRS that has been processed onto the FAFSA form, saving you a large amount of time. Now, for my very seasoned individuals, we remember when the FAFSA form was on paper, and we had to go through each individual field, almost lining it up like we were tax preparers, making sure that we applied the right value to the right field and make sure that we got it right. Now, luckily, that process is very simple. And so providing that consent approval would allow that information to be pre-populated. You don't have to worry about it. We will ask additional questions that I'll touch on a little bit later, but this process is meant to make the experience better. Now, every contributor is responsible and required to provide the consent and approval. And if you decide to not provide consent and approval, then the student will be considered ineligible for federal student aid. So you have to provide that consent and approval in order to get access to federal student aid. So keep that in mind as well. And lastly, we give you some information that you need to know after submitting the FAFSA form. When you get to the step, you can always even grab the URL. You can watch later or share it right on your screen here. So we do welcome you to do so if you're navigating it, especially if you have a community that wants to be informed as to what happens after completing the FAFSA form as well. Now, with that said, let's jump into the FAFSA form, starting out with the student identity information. Now, when you look at this screen, you at this point have already created a studentaid.gov account. You leverage that studentaid.gov account in order to sign in. Now, once you sign in, this information will be pre-populated. And when you're looking at their screen now, you're just verifying the information on your screen. You're trying to make sure everything is correct. So you want to check out with different things such as your contact information, your mailing address. Just make sure that is correct, because that's also going to show up on your FAFSA form. So you want to make sure all of it is correct. So you're going to head and hit continue. And then you'll be presented with your state of residence. And the question that we're asking is, when did this individual become a legal resident of the state of New York? Because we indicated that her permanent mailing address is New York. Remember? So you want to take it a step back, where we were referring to those dual states. Remember, you have the student that is living in 2 different states, and I told you guys, hey, you want to make sure you have your permanent mailing address wherever that is that's what's going to go into the FAFSA form. And this is why the question is important, because then it's going to be determined, when did the student become a legal resident of that particular state? And in this case, it was when she was the same month in which she was born. And now we get into providing consent and approval. Remember, every contributor is responsible or required to provide consent and approval. And they're going to go ahead and make sure they do so. Now, if they hit decline, a pop-up will come up informing the contributor that the student will be considered ineligible for federal student aid. It will still allow the contributor to go ahead and continue to provide information. Now, since information will not be pre-populated, they will have to enter the information manually, field by field. Also, after that, the only way the student can receive federal financial aid is by that contributor going back in and providing and approving and providing that consent and approval. So they want to go ahead and hit approve. And then we have the uploading information, is providing information, and voila, we were able to successfully import the information from the IRS. And we're excited to do so because now it makes this experience so much better and so much shorter. And we like shorter. So we're going to go ahead and hit continue. And now we presented with information based on your personal circumstance. Now this is surrounding your living arrangements, and we're going to ask additional information as it pertains to such. We're going to start out with your marital status. And here, because this is a student, they're going to get hit single. But also keep in mind when providing this information that this is also the first qualifying question of, should this student be considered a independent student? Remember when we were going through the PowerPoint and we had that slide that had to you only had to, if you answer no to all of these, then you may be considered a dependent student. But if you answer yes to one of these, then you may be considered an independent student. This is how we're asking and fleshing that particular question out. If you are considered married and not separated, that's also a flag to treat a student as an independent student. So keep that in mind when you're starting these questions and why we're asking them. So we go ahead and hit continue. And then we get into the college and career plans. For this particular student, they're going to say this is the first time that they're going to school, so they can enter that. If you are joining us as a dependent student that is in your second or third or fourth year, then you're going to head and enter a question accordingly. But this is the second qualifying question around dependency status, because if you are a graduate student, then you may be considered an independent student as well. So depending upon how you answer this question will also help us flesh out whether or not you're an independent or dependent student. And since the student is a first-year freshman, they are just going after their first bachelor degree, and they're going to get to, therefore, they're going to hit first year and no. The second question is asking, is this student pursuing their first bachelor degree in the 25-26 FAFSA year? And that begins on July 1st of 2025, and it sunsets in June 30th of 2026. Now, during that year, will they have their first bachelor degree? And in this case, you say no, because the student is first-year freshman. She's just graduating from high school with no additional college credits. And even if she wouldn't have had her bachelor degree within that first year. So in this case, we're going to answer accordingly. Next, we're going to be presenting with information and further is about their living situation. And a good way to look at this is we're going to ask some questions that are pertaining to whether or not they have military status or what's going on regarding their living arrangements that will qualify them as an independent student. So the first two questions are around, are they a veteran, or are they currently serving an active duty? And then the next several questions are asking, are they considered in foster care? Are they orphan, warded to court by the time they turn 13? Do they have any children, such as dependents? Are they emancipated minor or in legal guardianship? These are questions that if you do answer yes to, you may be considered an independent student. But in this case, she doesn't qualify for any one of these circumstances, and we'll click none of these apply. Next, we're asking questions about the homeless status. Now, if a student answered none of these apply, but they're considered an unaccompanied homeless youth, or they're at risk of homelessness and they're self-supporting themselves, then they want to go ahead and hit yes. Once they hit yes, they're going to get asked additional questions as who can verify your circumstance. Now, in any one of these cases, if they say, well, these individuals don't, they still have time to go ahead and get those documentations from these individuals or contact the financial aid office to determine how can they best get that information to them. Now, that's going to be the first step that it occurs. In this case, we're going to say that the student is not experiencing homeless. But again, if you are homeless or at risk of being homeless, just make sure that you reach out to the college access professional or your high school counselor and or your financial aid office for more information and what documentation that they will be looking for in order for them to verify your situation. So we're going to go ahead and go next to the unusual circumstance. Now, remember what we said before. Unusual is different from special financial circumstances. This is more on terms of what's happening. Is contacting your parents posing a risk, or you can't make contact. So if you experience any one of these things, you're going to go ahead and hit yes, and you will be placed in what's called a provisional independent status. And that's the same that goes for if you are also considered warded to court and so forth. When that happens, provisional independent status just means we're going to place you in the bucket of independent status, and you don't have to add information about your parents. You can go ahead and continue to complete the FAFSA form, but your information will be verified. And once it's verified, then you will lose the provisional status, and you'll be treated as an fully independent student. If you don't provide the information as it pertains to your situation, and you were considered a provisional independent student, then you will be removed of that provisional independent status and treated like a dependent student, asking for information from your parent or parents. So keep that in mind when it comes to understanding that provisional independent status and how it relates to your circumstance. So in this case, for this particular student, they're going to hit no. And now this student is considered a dependent student. The outcome showed that the information that they provided, we will need information as it pertains to who, the information from the contributor or their parent. Now, they're also asked, what about your parent? Is your parent going to provide information on the FAFSA form, or will they not? If they do not provide information on the FAFSA form, and the student is considered a dependent student, then the student is unfortunately not going to be eligible for federal student aid. And I want to make this stressed, that if in case that they do say yes, then what happens is that means that they're refusing to provide the information. But because, again, the prototype is of limited functionality, that experience we cannot have. However, we're going to know that they're not refusing, that they will provide information. So we'll go through that process accordingly. Now, remember when we stopped at the slide on the Who's My Parent wizard. I wanted to walk you through what it looks like as you're answering the questions. Now, when you come in, if the parents are married and they're not married, we're going to run through two different scenarios. Starting out with, if they are married, we're going to start out with yes. Then simply, we'll need information from both parents, but only one parent will need a studentaid.gov account if their tax filing status is married filing jointly. If they're married filing separately, then both parents will be considered a contributor, and we will need information for both parents. Now, for the nature of this webinar, we're going to go ahead and say that these are married filing separately, just to put a little twist on that scenario. And we'll navigate accordingly after we walk through the other scenarios. So the scenario number 2 is that the parents are not married. But let's say they're not married, but they live together. Well, we'll still need information from both parents, and we're going to treat them as both contributors. Okay, so we're going to need information from both parents. But what if they're not married? Now, the next question that we're going to ask is, did one parent provide more financial support than the other parent over the past 12 months? We're asking you, the student, you, the family, to answer this question. We do not make this determination as to who's providing more financial support. That is left up to you. So in the case that a student answers yes, then we're going to ask the question of, did that particular parent remarry? The parent that is providing more than financial support, they indicate yes. Then we're going to need information from the parent and step parent, okay? Not the other parent. However, let's say, for example, if they have not remarried, then we just need information from that parent. So good rule of thumb is, if the parent that's providing more financial support than the other has remarried, we will need information from the step parent. Now, let's say if they did not provide more than, the one parent did not provide more than financial support than the other parent. Well, the parent that you identified, have they remarried? We'll need the information from the parent and step parent. And again, if it's only one parent, then we just need information from that parent. I know that was a little bit confusing, and it could be for some of you. So I'm going to break it down like this. Think of it in terms of 3 steps. Are they married? If they're not married, do they live together? If they don't live together, who's providing more financial support? You guys figure that part out. And when you figure that part out, is that person who's providing more financial support, are they married? So 4 steps, 4 different ways of looking at it to determine who should be going on this FAFSA form. So in this case, we're going to indicate that the parents are married, and we're going to provide information from both parents. But remember the twist. They're married, but the tax filing status is married filing separately. So we move on to the next one. So we go ahead and invite the parents. And in this case, we have a parent here, and we're going to enter the parent's name. We're going to say we're just going to make it Test, and Test last name. Let's say Test last name. Okay. This person was born January 1st, 1970. And when you get to this section, if the parents do not have a social security number, we're just going to go ahead and click the box. In this case, we're going to say that they do have a social security number. But if they don't, then you just go ahead and click the box and it automatically grays out the field. Now, we're going to come down to email address. This is going to be important because they're going to be sent this invitation via email. And because they're sent it via email, you want to make sure that you get the email address right so they can make sure that they can access it. And parents, don't worry. We do know a number of you have joined us, and we're very excited to have you here. If your student has not received or has not put in the right email address, or you do not receive the invitation via your email because it could go into your spam, it could get held up by a server, excuse me. So keep this in mind that you can always log into your studentaid.gov account and then scroll down to the bottom and access your invitation there as well. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and have the invitation sent. Now, from the student's perspective, because we're completing this from a student's perspective, they are looking at this and they want to determine, did I do everything right? Perfect. All that information looks good. All they have to do, they can add additional invitation if necessary. If they want to add additional individual, they can do so. But in this case, where we're speaking it from a dependent status, and they were going to go ahead and hit continue. Next, we're going to move into the student demographics. These questions are completely optional. We ask information about the gender. For this case, it was a female. But again, these are completely optional and will not affect a student's eligibility for federal student aid. We also ask information about their race and ethnic background. In this case, the student is going to go ahead and hit preferred not to answer and move on. And then we're going to ask questions about the citizenship status. This is the third determination whether or not for federal student aid eligibility, because in order to receive federal financial aid, you have to be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen or national. Now, if you're neither, then you will not be eligible for federal financial aid. But it doesn't mean you won't be eligible for anything. Keep in mind, there are states that have a separate application as it pertains to state aid, and they may ask you to complete that application in order to be considered for state aid, and the same thing goes for institution as well. So in this case, she's a U.S. citizen. And then we ask questions about the parent's education, and in her case, we'll say one attended college but neither completed college. You're going to hit continue. We also ask the next question. We ask for everyone is about if the parent was killed in the line of duty while serving on active duty on the events in the armed forces on after events of 9/11, or they were performing official duties as a public safety officer. If they hit, for this case, we're going to hit yes. In the case, or it could be cases where they hit no, depending upon the student's circumstance. So you want to make sure you answer that accordingly as well. Answering to this, again, won't impact your eligibility for federal student aid one way or another. Then we get into the high school completion status. For her, it's going to be a high school diploma. However, if you're joining us and you're in process of completing your GED, or you have completed the GED, or you were homeschooled, you are still eligible for federal financial aid. If you have not completed high school at this time, then you can complete the form knowing that you'll be graduating next year, and that for the 25-26, you will be eligible because you're going into college, or university, or career school. You'll be enrolling at one of those institutions. In those particular cases, you can indicate that I plan to have my high school diploma by the beginning of the 25-26 school year. I plan to have my GED or my homeschool certificate by the beginning of the 25-26 school year. It's when you plan to enroll, will you have it by then? That's the way you should be looking at this particular question. Then we get into the high school information. We're going to see exactly, we're going to hit, we're going to say the school is located in New York. And we're going to say in New York, we're going to say it's in Brooklyn. And we're going to put the high school as Abraham Lincoln High School. And in this case, once you enter the information, then you're going to see at the bottom several selections. Make sure you select the one that pertains to your high school. If you do not see your high school located, you're just going to come here at the very bottom and you can have the option of adding the school manually. Now, some cases you don't remember the name of the school because it could have been very long ago, like myself. It just was many moons ago. I'm not going to count the moons. However, if that's not the case because of a name change, you just go ahead and click and add the school manually. And then what that does is flag us on the back end. We'll look the school up. We either add it to the list or we'll adjust the high school accordingly. Then we hit continue, and then we're able to confirm the information that we have just placed in the previous screen as it pertains to high school. Go ahead and hit continue. Now we get into the financial part of the section of the FAFSA form, and that's around your finances as the student. And we'll get into it, what way it looks for the parent in a few moments. Now, for the student's perspective, we're looking on for information regarding your IRA that has been rolled over into another IRA or qualifying plan. That's for my seasoned individuals who have IRAs. To answer this question, we're looking for the IRA that has been rolled over to a new IRA. We're also looking to see if you had any pension that was rolled over into an IRA or a qualified plan. And then when we're looking at for the next question, so we're going to say 0 here for the student, 0 here for the student. Did you have any college grant, scholarship, or AmeriCorps benefits that was reported as income to the IRS? In this case, the student says no. Do you have any foreign earned income exclusion? The student says no. If you're wondering what that looks like, you want to go to your 2023 federal tax information, look at your tax form, and look at the line AD. If you have a value populated onto that field, then that's where you want to put it here as well. And in this case, the students enter 0. And then they want to get into what is the total amount of cash savings and checking accounts as of today. If the student is completing it on Monday or Tuesday today, and they have only $100 in their account, then that's what all they need to put in that particular field. Now, we do look at what the net worth of your investments, including real estate. When we mean real estate, we do not mean the house that the student lives in. The net worth is looking at the value of your investment, and that can be your investment home, that can be a rental property. If you have a business, we're looking at the value of it minus any debt that is owed against it, and then looking at the difference between the two. So let's go back to the same example. You have a home. You have, let's say, a rental property. Rental property is valued at $100,000. The debt that is owed to the property is $50,000. That means the net worth is the difference between the 100 and the 50, making it $50,000. And then you'll put that here as $50,000. But in this case, the student doesn't have any rental property, so we hit 0. And the same goes for your businesses. If you have a business, what is the value of the student's business? And then we look at any debts that is owed to that business, and the difference between the two you put onto this area. If it's in the minus, just go ahead and hit 0. Okay. And then you hit continue. And now you're ready to select the colleges and/or career schools. On this list, you can add up to 20 schools. You don't have to have applied to them. You don't have to be enrolled at them. You can add up to 20 schools at one time. And then after the FAFSA has been processed, you can go right back in, remove those 20 schools, and add an additional 20 schools. What this means is that we're going to send these schools your information. Just because you went back in and you cleared out the original 20 is not going to then pull information from that school. That will sit there, and that additional 20 will get theirs as well. So in this case, we're going to say that the student wants to go to school, and let's say Idaho. Now afterwards, they're going to identify a school. Now granted, just again, this is a prototype and it's not going to have every active town in the state. So we're just going to go ahead and hit a random town, and we're going to select a random college. And it's going to be presented with additional information as it pertains to that school. We want you to select them. So we're going to say that the student wants to go to all of these institutions, these pulled up. Now, when you're going through the actual FAFSA form and you're selecting the state and the city, you're going to have actual values of the colleges, universities, and/or career schools that are located in that city and in that state. But for the purpose of this webinar, we're just putting on, fictitious areas, and we're going to go ahead and hit continue. Now the student is just going to check their list. They're going to make sure that everything is correct. All of the schools that they want to receive their information are on that list. And if it is, they're just going to go ahead and scroll all the way down to the bottom and hit continue. And now they're ready to sign their form. But they want to make sure that all the information is correct, and they're able to do so by expanding these accordion style sections, and that's going to enable them to see exactly what information is on that they have placed onto the FAFSA form. They can also see that who they identified as a contributor and who they're sharing this with. Now, as a student, I'm done, and that took us all of which 50 minutes, give or take. But the experience is much quicker as you're navigating it and you're not hearing my voice in the back of your head. So you're going to go in and you're ready to sign, and she's going to sign right there. And now she's almost done. But wait, she's identified a contributor. So how can we get the contributor's information there? Well, I'm glad that we have a scenario that covers that as well. So let's cover that scenario. So parents, this one's for you. Come a little closer. So parents, when you get the email, this is what the email is going to look like. When you open your email, it's going to have your name and it's going to have information letting you know that your student is asking you to provide information on their FAFSA form. You have about 45 days for that email before it gets deactivated, and the student has to resend you an invitation to complete your section of their FAFSA form. So you're going to come in, you're going to hit login, and it's very similar to how we began the webinar, where you have to enter your username and your password. Parents, if you do not have one, you can go ahead and create one. Again, it's located either at the bottom of your screen here to create an account, or you can come up here to create an account. If you're confused on how to do so, check out our YouTube channel for our previous webinar on what to know about a studentaid.gov. Also, keep this in mind too, that it will take a few days in order for us to process your information and make your username active. But once it's active, you can come in and click on log in and be able to log in like you see on your screen. So we're going to go ahead and log in, and now we're going to accept the invitation. After we accept the invitation, you're going to get presented with a few information to help us understand what is this FAFSA form, why I've been invited, and things like that. Again, if you do not receive the email, but you know the student has sent you an invitation, you can go ahead and log into your studentaid.gov account and can start it from there. Then hit continue. Now, just like the student section, you're presented with 4 onboarding pages, 3 of which are YouTube videos that you can share out with your community and those that are looking for that information. And then we're going to go ahead and get started. We want to make sure that all the information looks correct, and it looks like it does as a parent. And now we're asked to provide consent and approval. Parents, remember, if you decline providing consent and approval, the student will not be eligible for federal student aid. So this parent is going to come in and approve the consent and approval. And now we're taking the information that was processed from the IRS and populating it onto the form. So in that case, we're going to go ahead and hit continue. Now we're going to ask information about the parent's demographic. In this case, they're going to say that I'm not, this parent's going to say that I'm not married. And now we're going to ask for implied information. Now, keep this in mind too. Whenever if you get past a certain area and you say, wait a minute, I answered that wrong. I wanted to add additional parent and so forth. The parent can invite the contributor, or the student can invite the additional parent as a contributor. And in this case, we're going to say that the student messed up the parent was able to go back in and correct it, right? So we're going to put this down as test 1, last name, because the parent's like, wait a minute, you forgot to add someone else. So they're going to put in that, and they're going to put in there. Again, if they don't have a social security number, they're just going to come in and click this box here. And then they're going to come in and enter test 2, right? And now they're going to send the second contributor an invite to provide information. Remember, we started out where the student was navigating through this process, and we wanted to make sure we made a few mistakes along the way because we have to find ways to how can it get corrected, and making sure that when we get to the point of a completed FAFSA form, you have the most updated, accurate information. But this is why when you're going in, you're sort of serving as a check against some of that information, particularly as it pertains to identifying a contributor. So we say that the parent also lives in New York with the student, and they became a resident back in 1985, which makes them XX years old. So we're going to come in and talk about the finances. Now we're looking for information they have claimed on their federal tax returns. So parents, if you claimed any one of these benefits for federal programs or you're receiving these, then you want to make sure that you check the box accordingly. For the nature of this webinar, we're going to say no, but however, if you are receiving any one of these federal benefits, just go ahead and click the particular box that you are receiving. Now we're also going to ask information that the individuals that you claimed on your tax returns, is that the same as your size? If not, then you want to make you'll be asked on the next screen to go ahead and adjust that number. If it's the same, then we'll automatically conclude what that number is. And if it looks like it is, then you say, okay, great. Now keep in mind too, as it pertains to the number of students that's going to be receiving half the support, we could say, okay, well, guess what? Only one student, then is letting you know, hey, look, actually your family size is 4, because you have the student that you're taking care of, but you also have additional person that you're also treating as a dependent student as well. So it's actually 4 of you. So this allows you to adjust those numbers as the parent to be more reflective of your family. Now we come into the number of individuals that are in college. Now this was a recent change as of last year, where that number in college does not have an impact on the determination of the student aid index. However, this question is still asked. Now, outside of the how many students of people in the family will be in college, you're going to go ahead and hit 1. You're not to include parents, so don't include yourself. Next, we're going to ask you information similar to the student. Do you have an IRA that's rolled into another IRA? If you did, you'll enter the value here. In this case, for this parent, it says no. Do you have any pension that was rolled into an IRA or a qualified plan? In this case, the parent says no. If the parent, are they receiving any college grants or scholarships or AmeriCorps benefits, and they treat it as income and report it to the IRS? In this case, the parent says no. Well, do you have any foreign earned income exclusion? They want to make sure that they check their 1040 Schedule 1 under line AD. In this case, the parent says no. So they come in and say, okay, do you have to receive any child support? If you have, you put that value there. We want to know the current value of the cash savings and checking accounts. The parent comes in, he says, well, I have $1,000. Okay. Remember what we discussed about net worth. You have the value minus any debts, come out with your net. The parent says, I don't have anything. We just have the house that we live in, and that's it. That's fine. They'll put the value there. If they did have any real estate, such as rental properties and so forth, then they'll enter the net value there. If you have any businesses, what is the current value of those businesses minus any debt? You want to make sure you put those values there as well. So they hit continue. Now, just like the student, they're able to just double check the sections to make sure all the information is correct and looks like everything is for the student. But check this out. Parent also invited another contributor because the student forgot to do so. And so the parent went in and made sure that they were invited. So they went in and hit continue. Now that invitation was also sent early on, part of the section for the parent. And now the parent's going to come in and sign. It's important that they do provide that signature because it is required. But that experience was much shorter. Now, it's going to be even shorter for the parent that the initial parent has invited. That was a little tongue twister there. And as you're going to see, they're going to come in, log in, make sure that they do have a studentaid.gov account. They're going to come in and hit accept invitation. They're going to get presented with the same series of questions. Scroll down, verify all the information. And now they're going to provide consent and approval, because again, every contributor is required to provide that consent and approval. All the information that they have already been processed with the IRS is grabbing and pulling and ready to populate onto the FAFSA form itself. They'll jump right into the financial part of it. As you can notice, it's already been pre-populated. The other parent has already provided that information, and that's it for them. Now, after this screen, as you notice, instead of having the contributor information that they have shared, remember, they were the last individuals to receive the invitation to provide information. So they're the last individuals that need to sign the FAFSA form. They come in, they sign, and they hit submit. Now it's finally complete. They're finally done, and the student is jumped for joy. Now this information will be sent to us for processing, and we'll take that information and we'll make sure that it gets down to the schools the student is indicated, barring no additional holdbacks. Keep this in mind, though, there are scams out there, but there are ways that you can identify it, particularly around if someone's asking you to pay, or they're asking for private information such as username and password, or they say this is a limited time offer, you have to do something immediately. Just blow them, just tell them whatever, and keep it going. Now, if there are communications in regard, it has any type of spelling or grammatical errors, that may generate a red flag as well. We do have information on your screen of ways to avoid financial aid scams. Just keep in mind, coming from us, our official texts are coming from 227722 and 51592, but always double check everything. Always double check everything you receive. Now, when you see getting any type of emails that are coming from us, as you can see, typically ours end in studentaid.gov. It's not going to say studentaid.gov.net or .com as an additional extension. If you have been scammed, go change your password immediately. If you want to contact your bank or credit card company, stop all payments. If you were paying to that scammer, and you could also submit a complaint to us at studentaid.gov/feedback-center, or you can file it with the Federal Trade Center, Federal Trade Commission, or the Consumer Financial Protection. Now, we do have additional resources available to you. On your screen right now is where you can find additional tips, help, as well as information regarding filling out the FAFSA form, as well as the deadlines as it pertains to that as well. We also have the FAFSA site at FAFSA.gov. So you can also start it at FAFSA.gov or studentaid.gov. Log in, and you can start it within your studentaid.gov account. If you need to create one, you can visit studentaid.gov. Again, we'll be located upper right-hand corner, person icon, or you can go right to the URL on your screen. Now, we also have another resource that's very valuable where students can find and compare colleges and career trade schools that can fit their needs. Now, our college scorecard, which was developed by the United States Department of Education, provides data on the cost of college, the graduation rates, what the earnings are like after school. The students have stopped going or graduated from their program, and other useful information. You can find it at collegescorecard.ed.gov. We also developed the College Navigator, which is a database of more than 7,000 college universities that you can find by name, location, program, degree offerings, and a combination of criteria as well. We do have an estimator where you can get an early estimate based upon your financial student aid eligibility. Very useful for if you're parenting, you're a parent of a junior or a sophomore, or you just want to get an estimate prior to completing the free application for federal student aid. Please welcome you to do so. And you can also check out our wizard at studentaid.gov/FAFSA parent. We do have in-tax information for students that are currently taking out any type of federal student loans or federal student loan programs. We do have that available via the IRS at irs.gov/individuals/students. Lastly, there's information as it relates to the state grant agencies. But if you were looking out to figure out what kind of grants your state offers, you can visit the link that's on your screen. Again, if you want a copy of this PowerPoint, it will be available in the description after the video has been uploaded onto our YouTube channel located at FAFSA Outreach. Now, we also provide information, partner with Better Business Bureau to provide information on scholarship scam avoidance, as well as we do have information relating to the financial aid scam complaints. If you have been a victim, you want to make sure you visit the URL on your screen and make sure you report your experience so we can look into that as well. We do have Occupational Outlook Handbook for our college and career professionals. You can locate that at www.ed.gov/contact us/state contacts. And if you're joining us as a parent of students, we do have information to help you on saving for a college or career trade school, borrowing for school, and tax benefits for education located at studentaid.gov/parent. And we do have information that's via the IRS as it pertains to tax information for parents. And so that'd be very helpful, particularly for those parents, especially that are paying for the students' education. With that said, I know that was a lot, and I hope you were able to take down a lot of information. We do welcome your feedback. We always want to improve our services and our products, particularly as it surrounds our webinars, improving it, making sure it meets the needs. So please scan the QR code you see on your screen. Provide us that feedback. It goes a long way to improving these products and services that we have available to you. What ways we enhance it? Did you enjoy this? Did you learn something from this presentation? We do welcome your feedback. So go ahead and take your phones out. Go ahead and you open your camera, zoom in if you have to, and go ahead and get access to that particular form. Provide your feedback so we can receive it. Information that is provided on that form is anonymous, and so it's very helpful for us to be able to provide these wonderful services and webinars for the public. And if you can't scan it, just go ahead and visit the link below the QR code to be able to get access to that information. With that said, I'm going to bring back in my colleague, Fred Stennis, who's going to facilitate several questions and answers.
Well, actually, Isaiah, thank you so much for the presentation. We won't have, we're a little over time, so we won't have a chance to get to all the questions. We were able to answer several of the questions in the chat. So for those of you who got your responses there, we hope those were helpful. I want to reiterate again, the PowerPoint will be available at our YouTube channel within 24 hours of this webinar. So tune into our YouTube channel at FSA Outreach, and you can request an actual copy of the PowerPoint presentation. We can get that to you, as well as you can view the video that will be uploaded there for today's session. So again, I hope this was very helpful for you. I want to thank you, Isaiah, again, for your effort and your sharing with us and our audience about how to submit that 2526 FAFSA form. With that said, thank you all and have a good night.